Hey guys, it's Dean. Welcome to Manful Yoga. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use yoga to warm up for deadlifting. So, I talk about weights, yoga, and body weight, and doing as many different types of fitness as you can, well, as often as I can. So, I wanted to show you how I use yoga for deadlifting. So, before you do a deadlift, before you do weightlifting in general, your main goal with your warm-up should be to prepare your body for the exercises ahead. And in order to do that, I think the most effective way to, or the most effective way to do that is to get the muscles firing that you're going to be using in that exercise. So when you're doing a deadlift, and we'll talk about this because that's what this video is on. When you're doing a deadlift, your goal is to get your glutes firing, it's to get your inner thighs firing, it's to get your core in the proper position and the core firing. It's to prepare your back for the exercise because you're going to be using your back as well. And it's also to get your hamstrings a little more open because it does require hamstring mobility to do a deadlift with a flat back. So I'm going to show you a few of the exercises that I would do before I do a deadlifting session using yoga. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start off on my back, just lying on the ground, and I'm going to do a bridge pose. So for bridge, I'm just going to bring my feet in toward my butt like this, get my feet and my knees about hip width distant. Sometimes it helps to put a block between your thighs. That way you can tell just exactly how wide your thighs and your hips should be. So squeeze that block tight and then lift your hips off the ground and really work on squeezing your hips toward one another, reaching your tailbone toward your knees and keeping your back flat. So you'll notice if you look at my abs that I'm not arching open my back here, I'm not opening up my ribs, but I'm drawing my ribs in tight and trying to keep a straight line from my knees to my shoulder. And that's one of the bigger mistakes that I see when it comes to people doing bridge. So make sure that you are keeping that straight line from the knees to the shoulders. We're going to squeeze that block tight to get the inner thighs engaged and squeeze your hips toward one another to get your glutes engaged. Now from here, you're going to let the block go and you're going to do one leg. So bring your left leg or right leg or whichever leg first up. Press that heel forward and really focus on squeezing the planted hip in toward the middle. So my right leg's in the air here and I'm squeezing my left hip in toward the middle to get my entire glute engaged. Particularly as I squeeze the hip in toward the middle, that's going to get my medial glute engaged. And I can do this for about 30 seconds, and it's important to hold it and be static and just hold it for a while. That way you're getting as many muscle fibers as possible to fire. And then you're going to switch sides, bringing your left leg up, squeezing the right hip in toward the middle, pressing down firmly through the right heel, keeping the toes on the ground. And again, just really getting that glute to turn on. So squeezing tight, keeping your abs tight and engaged. And giving this about 10 more seconds. Pressing your left heel forward at the same time. Again, really feeling this in the hips. And then when you're done, go ahead and plant the left foot and release down. Let's go ahead and stand up from here. So we've got the hips really active. Now we're going to work on getting the rest of your legs active. Best way to do that is through just a standing balance posture. So I'm going to go up into a one leg balance, standing on my right foot. Bring your left knee up to hip level and just balance here for about 30 seconds. I'm going to push down through my heels, squeeze my right thigh, look straight forward, make sure my hips are level. If you want, you can even drive your hand into your thigh here. So left thigh pressing into your left hand. And just doing about 30 seconds here, just getting the legs active. You'll also feel your core engage here. And you really want to squeeze your right thigh, the entire right thigh. So the quadricep, the hip, the glute. And then switch sides. Left foot plants, right knee comes up. Press your hand into your thigh. Stand up nice and tall. Squeeze your left thigh. So you're getting the quadricep, you're getting your glute. Pushing down through your left heel. Maybe a little bit of wobble, that's good. That actually means that your body's adjusting and that more muscle fibers are turning on for the exercise ahead. All right, and then go ahead and release. I like to do a lunge before this just because getting the hips open just feels a lot better. So we're going to do a high lunge here. A high lunge is also a bit of a balance posture. Your goal here is to open up the front of the left hip a little bit. We don't want to, when we're warming up for lifting, we don't want to make huge significant increases in our mobility before we lift. because that's just not the goal of the workout. And if you stretch to your maximum capacity before an intense workout, you're actually not going to get as good performance. So it helps to just go into a little deeper into mobility, but not to your full extreme range of motion. So we're just about 30 seconds into this lunge, squeezing the left thigh, pushing down to the right hip, getting the glutes engaged, getting the hips open a little bit. And then switch sides, left leg up, right leg back, push down through your left heel, squeeze your right thigh. Again, just feeling a little bit of opening through the right hip. We don't want to feel like we are pushing our mobility way beyond what we're used to. We just want to feel a little bit of a stretch. It should be mostly about muscle activation, a little bit about working deeper into it, but mostly about getting the muscles turned on. Give this about one good long breath. So with deadlift, the goal is to put the weight in your hips. Most people who make mistakes in deadlift put the weight in their back. And so they'll get through the lifts, but they'll feel some discomfort in their back, and they might feel sore for a couple days afterwards in the lower back. We want to make sure that that isn't happening. You shouldn't feel pain in your lower back afterwards, or you shouldn't feel like you're struggling with your lower back. And the ways that I found that have really helped to mitigate that lower back pain is a couple of techniques. So the first is we're going to make sure that we're pressing the hips toward the ground as we stand up, right? So as we pull the weight up off the ground, we're going to press our hips toward the ground, and I'll show you what that looks like. It also helps to kind of pull the bar up off the ground just a tiny bit. You're not actually going to move the weight, but you're just going to have that tension of pulling the weight away from the ground before you start. So what that looks like, I'm going to grip the bar, and I'm going to do a double overhand grip. So meaning my palms are facing back. I'm not facing my palms up like this, or one palm up, one palm down, but I'm going to do both facing back. I'm going to have my feet facing as straight forward as possible. It's the same reason for a squat. I want to make sure that my feet are facing straight forward and I'm not compromising my hip mobility. If you would like to turn your toes out a little bit, right? So if you want to turn your toes out to face kind of toward 11 and 1, I've heard some people do that. But I would not turn it out that much. I would turn out just maybe a little bit to the sides, just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to have my feet a little bit closer than shoulder width, so not quite as wide as I have them for a squat, but a little bit closer than that. And then I'm going to grip the bar. Again, double overhand grip. Make sure I'm right in the middle. And then I'm going to lightly pull the bar away from the ground, right? Just a tiny bit. So notice how the bar is just lifting up. So it's just me pulling the bar up a little bit. I'm not actually lifting away from the ground. I'm just pulling it up. Now you want to hinge at the hips as you're sitting down. So I'm not going to bend my knees forward and then sit down because that puts the weight in my thighs, in my quadriceps. What I want to do is hinge at the hips, right? So I'm going to bend the knees just a little bit, push my hips back and down. Again, so I'm hinging at the hips, and the weight is in my glutes. It's in the back of my thighs, my hamstrings to start. If I start it in the quadriceps, it's going to stay in the quadriceps. So again, hinge at the hips, and that movement takes some practice to do. So you might want to spend just even a couple minutes just kind of practicing that hip hinge, bringing the butt straight back. Now you're going to grip the bar, and you want to pull your chest forward. You're going to keep your chest looking forward, and that's going to help you keep a flat spine. We want to make sure that we're not arching the back. We also want to make sure that we're not rounding the back. So we're right in the middle. You're going to feel your core engage. You're also going to feel those muscles, your erector spinae, the muscles on either side of your spine engaging. And then as we start, we're going to pull a bar up just a little bit, and you're going to push your butt down toward the ground. So pulling up, pushing hips down, and then standing up. Thighs are also squeezing toward one another. So I'm keeping thighs squeezing toward one another. Glutes are engaged, core is tight. And again, a little bit of upper back activation by pulling the bar up a little bit. So one more time. Holding a little bit wider than shoulder width. I'm going to get the bar as close to my shins as possible. And pull my chest forward, push down through my heels, squeeze my thighs toward one another. And then make sure my spine is neutral. Pull the bar up a little bit, press my hips down, and then just lift all the way up. And making sure that you're exhaling as you're standing up. So one more time. So I'm pulling the bar, pushing my hips down, big breath in, exhale, stand up. Okay? So there's the deadlift. Again, it's a full body exercise. I'm using my back, I'm using my hips, I'm using my glutes, I'm using my core, and I'm breathing. I'm actually a little lightheaded right now because I'm talking through this while I'm doing it. You shouldn't talk while you're doing deadlift. Yoga, it's manageable, but deadlifting, don't talk in deadlift. So you should be using a lot of air. You should be forcefully exhaling as you stand up. It's different from yoga, right? But this is a different type of fitness. We're not doing yoga right now. We're lifting. So I'm just going to do a couple more so you can see kind of the technique here. So I'm getting set, taking some deep breaths, inhaling to get started. Exhale. And there's a little bit of a hip pressing forward at the end. I don't want to press my hips forward to the point where I'm doing this. Right? Some people will do that where they start to press their hips forward and it's kind of like they're doing a little bit of a back bend and even pulling the shoulders back. You don't need to do that. Just stand up to neutral. Make sure you're tightening your glutes as you stand up, but you don't need to lean way back like that. And our goal is to keep a back flat. We want to make sure that the spine isn't rounding. We're not lifting with our back. We're lifting with the hips. So again, thanks for joining me for this workout today. Make sure you subscribe. We put out lots of videos like this on a very regular basis. And to get full access to all of my workouts, my programs, tutorials, and more, head to manfulyoga.com, sign up for a 7-day trial. It's just $1. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video.